It's a big group. Welcome. It's really exciting to see all of you here and to all be together in person, except one of our poor panelists just tested positive for COVID. So the poor lady, she's joining us live from her hotel room where she's self-isolating. So we're not quite out of the woods yet, but we're almost there. So for those of you, I see a lot of people that I know, but I see some people that I don't know. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen Marin. I am a beauty and fragrance industry veteran. Started behind the counter as a salesperson. Then I was department manager for cosmetics at Saks Fifth Avenue in San Francisco for several years. Then I became the fragrance buyer at Sephora in the 2000s and was instrumental in creating the fragrance strategy, which, what did that include? Rollerballs, sample sets, and touchscreen in-store fragrance finder, which is still in place today. And then I transferred to Paris to Parfums Givenchy, where I was the business development manager for North and South America. And I did that for 10 years. And in between, I was coming to Aix-en-Provence and chairing panel discussions. So in 2018, Silvio Levy called me and he said, you know what, Karen, Aix-en-Provence is great, but I want something that's going to continue throughout the year. So I want to create a web platform, which we did, and it's called Extensional. So if you like what you experience here, I would say come on over to extensional.com, and what you will find there is sort of the continuation of these workshops. It's interviews with perfumers, with brands, with retailers. It's talking about business solutions and ideas for the niche fragrance community. And in my current role, I'm an advisor and a key contributor writing original content. And actually, everyone on the panel I have written about for one reason or another because they are important in the artisan fragrance community. So today we're going to talk about digital. And I'm going to start with the one gentleman on our panel, with Eduardo, and then I'll pass it on to Yosh and then to Dana. So Eduardo, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came into this, okay, which is an interesting story, yes, and what you're doing now.
Okay, thank you. Well, my name is Eduardo. I'm from Mexico, and I'm an industrial engineer, nothing to do with perfumes, but I've always been in love with perfumes. So 4 years ago, I decided to focus all my attention into this. And from there, I started sharing my opinions of my collection. And from there, I also started developing a platform to help reach more of the content that it's being made, so it could be accessible to the brands, to the public, and also that it doesn't be scattered all over the place. So that's, I think, when we met, Karen, you know, for the platform.
Meissen Journey.
Yeah, Meissen Journey. So, well, that's a bit about me, and obviously I don't have all the credentials that you have.
Oh, no. What you're doing is amazing. No, he's really downplaying himself because he has how many followers on YouTube?
Oh, like 30,000.
Like 30,000 in Spanish-speaking countries.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's very important because of the growing of the Spanish-talking community about perfumes is going very, very big, and that's, you know, something very good. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let me pass it over to Yosh. Yosh Han.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a little jet-lagged, and I just wanted to say that it's great to be in Italy, and I want to thank Karen and Aix-en-Provence and Extensional for having me. The reason why I'm here is, I'll give you the short, long story because how I ended up here is not how I started. So I started my career as a perfumer. I launched my own brand called Yosh, which is also my name, back in 2004. And then I was very lucky to meet Campo Marzio in 2010, which changed the trajectory of my perfume career because, you know, a lot of perfume is mostly European-centric, and here I was, an Asian American female perfumer doing spiritual, esoteric, hand-blended perfumes. And so without them, I don't think I would have had the kind of success that has allowed me to continue my career in the States. While I was doing my own branded work, I was also doing a lot of education and consulting. So I did a lot of tastings for whiskey companies, chocolate companies. I've been a judge at the International Chocolate Salon for many years. I'm now a judge for the Art and Olfaction Institute in Los Angeles. And then in my educational role, I, you know, do a lot of consulting, teach. I've spoken at other conferences, including Petit Fragranza, but I've also been on stage at UC Berkeley, spoken at DARPA, which is, I don't know, the military arm of the United States. And this is the amazing thing is my success has been largely because I'm not classically trained and because I'm not a traditional perfumer. It's because I'm super esoteric. And in this work, what I have found is it's no fun being alone. So since the very beginning, I've always been one to make friends and build other people up like me. So independent perfumery, including, you know, prior to my coming over, American perfumery was relatively unknown. And so in my limelight, I said, well, it's not just me. There's a bunch of other Americans that I know, and I'm going to push them forward too. And so I've really become kind of a pioneer for just the independent movement, particularly West Coast perfumery, American perfumery, and in that way, I've developed a lot of relationships and have always championed independent perfumery. And then more recently, I've been super lucky to be the creative director at a new company called Scent Trunk, where we commission, much like Frederic Malle, independent perfumers and give them kind of carte blanche to create their own fragrances. And I'm so thrilled. There are two people here in the audience who I only met via Zoom, basically, Maya and Ezra, and they're two perfumers that I've been so lucky to work with, and they're kind of new on the scene, and I just love that they're here. And because partly, you know, when I came up, there was no one that looked like me, and so even though they're not Asian, they're melanated and they're brown perfumers, and so I feel like this is great to come on after the African panel because it's important in artisan perfumery to recognize that it's not just French perfumery now in this day and age. Not only is it digital, it's brown and melanated. So I feel really lucky, and thank you for giving me this platform.
But you forgot to mention Scent Festival, which
Oh yes,
is digital.
of course. Yes, I'm so focused on other people.
You're jet
Yes,
lagged.
yes. And so through my community of just knowing lots of independent perfumers, with the pandemic, I was like, oh gosh, I know all these people. What can we do to stay connected? Because I think when you are isolated, you know, as an artisan, as a creative person, you know, the depression is real, and I think it's important for creative people to have a platform. And so during the pandemic, I thought, hey, I know all these friends. I've already, since 2016, been living a digital nomadic life. I got rid of my studio in 2016 in San Francisco, and so I decided in the middle of the pandemic to do Instagram Lives, Zoom sessions, and I'll never forget when I said, oh yeah, you guys, we're gonna do Instagram Lives. No perfumer even knew what that was. They didn't even know that Instagram had this feature. So what was initially meant to be like 5 or 6 sessions turned into over 60 sessions. And at first it was primarily a platform for just talking about independent perfumery, getting people to know other perfumers. And then during the Black Lives Movement, I focused my entire attention to promoting Black perfumers because there was an article written that said, oh, there's only 2 Black perfumers in the world. And I was like, what the F? That can't be true. So I made it my mission to find other people to really amplify it. And then during Corona, there's been a lot of anti-Asian sentiment. And so through that, I also wanted to promote other Asian perfumers. And through that, it was become this conversation about changing the nomenclature around the word Oriental to amber. And so fragrances of the world. Michael Edwards and his team will be speaking later today, I believe, on this topic. Unrelated, I just found out that he was doing this.
Yeah.
But so I encourage you to go to that. But again, thank you for this platform because it's really important work.
Thank you. All right, now we're gonna flip over to join virtually Dana. Dana, thank you for joining us.
I'm here with my assistant. I'm not sure. Okay, so you can see me on the screen. You don't see my.
No, but right now, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience and your experience with fragrance in the digital context.
My digital context comes from my professional background. I'm currently a thought leadership consultant in Silicon Valley, where I work with mainly startups in the Internet of Things companies in the area of fast and big data. What that means is basically I look at the market and for them I try to spot patterns, which you can't see, in how the market evolves. And I try to contextualize that reality by making connections that they didn't previously see. That manifests in a lot of different kinds of activities and materials that I prepare for them. But think about, analyst reports. That's kind of where they come from people like me. My relationship with perfume is just like everybody else's, long, love story. But my activity in this space and what brought me to you today is that a while back I started a market forming initiative called Nas de Nas for Romanians. I am originally from Romania, even though I live in San Francisco now. And I discovered that there's a lot of need for education, and because I'm a nerd, and because my tendency is always, like I said, to contextualize information and to present it in the simplest way I can, I started creating educational materials for the Romanian market. But it kind of grew into, like I said, a market forming initiative because there was a lot of activity around ambassadorship, community training, forming communities, working with the forums, live events. I even created these testing trains, boxes of all the samples that I could collect and purchase throughout the world, throughout my testing activity, and send them literally from city to city to people in my community who then gathered other people to have impromptu testing sessions in a country that doesn't have, or didn't used to have back then, as much access to internet functionality as they do today. I did whistleblowing, mentorship for other reviewers, and so on and so forth. So market forming is, I think, a very appropriate term for that. Because I had a lot of acquaintances in the industry, and I reviewed and offered impressions to a lot of leading perfumers I had contact with, they encouraged me to create a network, and that became a platform to connect creators who don't have time to educate their publics and publics who don't know where to go for information. So I started creating a series of small documentaries, mainly material-focused in the beginning, but now it grew into a very rich activity of data collecting, which manifests in different directions. One of them is questionnaires. I distribute questionnaires like there's no tomorrow. One of them was for this particular session. I interviewed about 100 influencers and community leads to see what they think about the digital space. But I also have studies in the role, one of which is, for example, the role of sexual workers in the evolution of perfumery as we know it today. So I usually take two unrelated fields and try to find the connection, because I do believe that everything's connected to everything, and smell is part of it all. So that's kind of how I am today.
Okay, great. Well, what I want to do now is start the presentation, and I want to start with you, Dana, where we talk about the digital journey and how it has changed since COVID. And I'm afraid we're going to have to go to the presentation and take you off the video because we can't do both at the same time. If we can go back to the presentation on the screen.
You'd like me to bring my slide back, correct?
Yes, please.
All right, here it comes. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right, so this initially started as a list of trends that I've been noticing from all of my research and all the reports I've been going through. I discovered very soon enough that I can't literally make a distinction between what is consumer-led, what is brand-led, what is industry-led. So instead, I decided to look at the life cycle. What do consumers do, and how has that changed through COVID, and more importantly, why? Because that, of course, is going to talk about the trends and where the market is going. So before COVID, the awareness stage, as you see here, was a little bit longer because it's usually brand-led. Brands are the ones who are initiating efforts to make a brand or a product known to the public. Then somebody would probably find out somewhere, maybe on a website, maybe in stores, maybe in press. Then they would go to InfoGather, they would look on, for granted that they would talk to their influencers, they would look on the brand sites and then decide to buy. The buy phase was also pretty long because it was usually price-led and price-driven. People kind of waited to see things on sale, they first tested, they compared, they would look on forums to buy, and so on and so forth. So usually, before COVID, the awareness stage, the period of time it took to become aware that something exists, and the buying stage were the longest. The info gathering, so if an influencer told you to get it, you would probably get it, and the post buy was usually scent of the day, maybe a repurchase, you'd update your wardrobe, and you had it. What happened in COVID, because we had time, and because we were less pressured, and because we had more conditions for learning, more safety of space, more content available, and less disposable income, the proportions have shifted. And this is very important because we now have on our hands two threats and two opportunities. So it's shifted to what you see here. The awareness stage is much shorter. It takes less time for people, for the publics, to become aware of something. And that happened for a variety of reasons. The online footprint is bigger, like I said, more content everywhere. The virality of things is through the roof. Roche is going to probably talk about it at length because it's very, very important. Everything is community-led, community-impressed. There's market-making efforts. Brands have all these other collaborators doing the work for them, and the work is done faster at grander scales. So this is a threat. If I would be in the room, I would ask you to guess why. I'm not, so I'm telling you. It's a threat because if you reach the wrong publics, or if you think you're talking to a public without looking at your demographics, you are dead. Dead. If you are
Love the sound effect.
if you're not on top of your messaging and the message goes viral, you are dead. So the fact that the message is decentralized and you don't have an option to see everything that's out there, that's being spoken about our brand, that is being transmitted about our initial message, and I think Eduardo is going to speak to that about this particular part. You are basically doomed. It's very hard to control your message, so this is the threat. Now we're going into deep education. People are literally researching like they've never done before. And a lot of the buying trends, so the education phase and buying phase, have born a lot of the trends that I'm going to mention next. Because this bit here is very consumer-led. People literally took their reins of power, right, when researching, demanding even, because a lot of the trends are consumer-supported as well. And I'm going to talk about them next. The post-buy is also long. People interact with their realities more. They go back to their communities, they're looking for validation, and so on. But the threats, I said there are two. The awareness bit is one, and the buying stage is another for the brand. Because
came up with the term Sereni Clean. So escapism is another trend. Politics, we've already talked about. There's another trend that I called lab is fab, because people are starting to learn about, and talk about how not all the synthetics are bad. They started talking about reconstituted naturals and looking into that, being very focused on specific materials, headspace, aldehydes, all of it falls in the same thing. So lab is fab is another trend. There's another trend that I would call non-conforming, non-conformism, if you want. That if a long time ago, people had some sort of brand loyalty, now it's going out the window. People are not brand loyal. There's an increase in testing pools, variety of things that people smell. Women who were more likely to have signatures are now abandoning everything. It's called non-monogamy, apparently, in the industry.
Yeah, Dana, I
niche.
think that was the one that you told me. It's like not being loyal to a brand, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Men are increasingly using. Again, we're talking about niche and indie. Increasingly using and declaring products that are targeted towards women, which maybe used to happen, but not publicly. Now it is happening. There's a micro trend of launching men's fragrance as pour homme, which didn't used to happen. We had this unisex thing for a long time. And of course, personalization, custom work is also very big. All of this is supported by tendencies from the consumers, and their tendencies are supported by their interest areas, which can be found in what they search. And this is how I got to create this list. Another trend is, I guess, an attitude and thinking of self. They're very interested in things that may make them good or better, from feeling like they made the right choice, therefore purchased the right political item, to I want to take care of what I put on my skin, on my body. I don't want a hairspray that is toxic. So self-care in the sense of cosmetic care and health is very big on trends right now. It's called skinplicity, excuse me. We noticed a lot of gifting, language of love, gifting, sending things. So that fell into the same bucket of caring for others. Everything is community-based. And back to it represents me, it represents what I'm standing for. This manifests in a willingness to buy pricier items. Fragrances priced over $175 doubled in number of units sold over 2021. So people are moving into a higher bracket, even though they're more price conscious. But when they do decide to buy, they are okay with buying more expensive things. This is a very recent report.
Which, Dana, that's really good news for niche fragrance because
Absolutely.
It's in the price point. So thank you for sharing the trends with us here. I think that right now, just in the interest of time, we're gonna move on to our next topic, which I move on to Yosh, who's going to tell us about the digital demographics, which is quite important. So we'll go back to the presentation on the screen, and we'll go if you can switch back. Thank you. And now to the presentation. Thank you. And we go here. So I hand this over to Yosh because, I mean, I'll let her explain it, but digital demographics, when you're targeting your platform, you want to be sure you're targeting the right age range of your consumer. So Yosh, take it on.
All right, show of hands. How many of you are on Facebook? Okay. And how many of you are on Instagram? Okay, great. And how many of you are on TikTok? Not as many of you. That's fine. And then how many of you are on YouTube? Okay, so I just want to point out that there's a possibility that you're missing out if you're a brand owner.
Yeah.
The mic.
Okay, my light's on.
No, it's
He needs
it's not working.
They're taking a siesta
is.
back
There
there.
it is.
Okay. Well, we saw that a lot of you are on Facebook, on Instagram, but if you're a brand owner, there's a possibility that you're missing out on a whole new audience that is on YouTube and TikTok, as well as on the right side, or your left, no, yeah, your right side as well. There are lots of communities that are happening digitally where on Dana's slide, there was this whole section on your post buy. And so the reason why this is important is in the community spaces, your consumers, after you've made your purchase, after they've saw your ad, they're still talking about it and bragging about your brand. And so you don't necessarily want to be a lurk and be in those groups, but just know that exactly as Dana said, if you are doing something awesome, they're going to talk about it for days. If you're doing something horrible, there is a unspoken blacklist. And so if your brand's not performing very well, and you might ask yourself if you've done something that's not aligned with your target audience, because they're values driven in their purchases. So if there's something that you're not aware of or not doing well, including, the very topics that she mentioned is decolonizing. If you're still using the word Oriental, there's a blacklist in the groups that say, don't buy from these brands, they're culturally appropriating, they have, branding that doesn't work, or they're greenwashing, that's a big no-no as well. So, your digital market is not the same as your in-person market. And the thing is you might only have 15 seconds to capture someone's attention, because we all have a little bit of ADHD, but the longevity is much longer than that 15 seconds. So, your 15 minutes of fame is not just 15 minutes, but it really can go viral, both positive, negative. And I don't want to name any names, but there's certainly some brands here who have fallen accidentally, without knowing, into this blacklist. And you have the opportunity, because in each post, there's a lot of comments. And so if you're gaslighting, or your PR person is not aware or not paying attention, it's there forever. So even if you think you've deleted, there are some brands who have had to delete their Instagram, start all over, but people screenshot those things, as well as all the positive things. So you never know on TikTok. I did a TikTok on hot girl toothpaste. It was literally a 5-second video, and overnight it had 70,000 views on toothpaste. I don't even sell toothpaste. And then in the fragrance world, there are lots of viral videos on TikTok where people are suddenly overnight 1 million views. You're not going to get those numbers on Facebook. You're not going to get those numbers on Instagram. And so if you're a brand, you can't try to fake that $1 million viral video, but your fans, the ones who are your loyal customers, or just someone makes a video about you, your potential is massive. And so even though lots of people will say, if you look at the sales funnel and the buy funnel, Facebook is still, conversion rates, when you go to email, they're still, you're spending your ad dollars on Facebook or Instagram, but building awareness happens at a different level that you might not be aware of. So that demographic is just to show that there's lots of people that wouldn't be in your store that are shopping your brand online.
And it's a perfect segue to move on to what Eduardo is going to talk about, because we're going to talk about forums and communities. And one of the things that we talked about in our pre-calls was about how these people they're generating their own content can become an ambassador for the brand.
Yes, of course. As has been mentioned previously, obviously with COVID, people had time to write about products. And then you have people they have time to read them. So in the span of 2 years, the channels dedicated to talk about, in this case, perfumery, have gone up exponentially. And the thing is, those contents sometimes the problem with this overpopulation of content is that it's all over the place. As we could see on the previous slide, you have TikTok, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, but you also have other forums like WhatsApp, like Telegram, Facebook groups. So as a brand, it's very difficult to keep track of all of these comments, and especially if you are trying to do it by your own. So one of the things that I heard right now, it's very good. You have to harness the power of these already fans of the brand, or even customers that publicize about your product. So if you can harness that, you already have presence in all these platforms. Now you have to close the circle and then make the purchase. But the problem is to find all this kind of information.
Which I'm just going to give him 2 minutes to talk about his his idea, because this is one of the reasons why I was so fascinated by what he's doing, is because it is something that will close that gap.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Karen. Well, me as a content creator, I realized that the content I was doing on Instagram was perishable. That means if you didn't see my post today, most likely you won't see it in another day, because you have a lot of feed, and then these social media sites are not created to be a database. They are not created to have a certain reference. You can use hashtags, but from 1 million hits, then you would narrow to 10,000 hits. That doesn't help. So what I did with my journey, it's gather all these different media from all these different platforms and make them available in just one place, being indexed by brand, by product, the information of the brand and the product given directly from the brand. So you have the content, all the content done in just one place. So if you search, for example, for a brand or a specific product, you will see in just one site everything that has been done on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or even blogs, So that's very interesting, because now you can see, for example, what they have been saying. If somebody's talking bad about you, then you can spot it. And then you can see who is that person, in which country are they doing that, and maybe what's the reason behind it. So, for example, I don't know if the example that Josh gave about the use of Oriental, maybe a brand owner, he wasn't even aware, of this thing, because maybe he has 60 years and he's not into trends, or I don't know. Well, now for one of his team, he could reach there and see, oh my God, we have a problem there. We have to fix it, or maybe we can correct our vision. So I think this is a very special place, because as a content creator, you can have a window into more into go outside of your following ring. If you only have 100 followers, they only see 100 of your posts. But if you have it in a platform, then maybe somebody that doesn't know you but is finding information about that product will see you. So there's a check for the content creators. Obviously, there's a check for the brands, because they have all the information in just one place. And eventually, when time passes and you have more data, then you can have some very precise data of who is saying what, in which country, of what of your products, and the difference between what you think of your product and what your audience is really thinking about. And if I may, this is very important, because brands, unfortunately, they cannot, sometimes they don't care about, keeping track of all of these comments, but sometimes they can't. And obviously, I'm not going to say a name, but for example, a niche brand, 10 years ago, they released a very big perfume. And on all the forums and all the community of perfumes, over the past 10 years, they have been saying the quality is going down, the performance is going down. Everybody knew that, except the brand. And that led to other opportunistic brands to see that gap and present with an opportunity, with another perfume. Yeah. So the brand didn't knew what hits them because they or even didn't care to check or didn't know where to check. So that's another thing that I think this solution, and not just for the content creators, but like I said, to the brands, and obviously, last part, to the customer or the consumer, the person who uses the perfume, who doesn't have to know who is the influencer or the YouTuber. I just want information about a product or a brand. So in just one place I can have it, regardless if I know the guy or if he's popular, because that's also another thing. If you are popular, then your content is good? No, it's not correlated. So we have to give a spotlight to maybe a person that only has 2 followers, but you know he writes amazingly and he has a big knowledge about perfumes. Well, now you have an opportunity. So it's, in a nutshell, I guess in less than 2 minutes. What?
No, it's visionary. I feel, and thank you for sharing it.
No.
And now I'm gonna still call on you.
Okay.
To talk about social commerce, because we talked about this.
Yes.
And how it's changing, and there's so much opportunity.
Yes, of course. Well, let's start with what's social commerce. Social commerce is when a brand uses his social networks as a sale channel, to close a sale, not just to promote the pretty photo or have presence. You know, nowadays everybody has to have a Facebook or an Instagram or a YouTube. Well, when you are able to direct a buy from that post, now you can do it, for example, from Instagram or Facebook, which you have InstaShop, or in Facebook they are called stores. You can do a store in like 5 minutes, and from there, from a single post, a client can click it, buy it, and doesn't even have to go into your website. So that's amazing. The buying circle of that action is very good. But unfortunately, they rely on one important aspect, which is social. So if a brand is talking praises about himself, that's not social, that's marketing, and other people won't buy that. So what you have to do is precisely what we have been talking about. You have clients, fans of the brands, reviewers, even perfume aficionados, you know, and they are posting all over the place, and all over the formal platforms and informal platforms. And now you can harness those posts to create a sale. How can you do it? Well, for instance, in Instagram, they have released a tool called CGU, which is customer generated post. Well, in Spanish it's different. Sure. Let's say I took a photo of a perfume and I upload it to my webpage. Well, the brand can ask a permission of me. So on my post, if somebody click it, you can buy it. And then you will do the same thing as you can do it on your social Instagram shop, but in another platform. So that's amazing. And lastly, you have to harness what's happening on Facebook groups, Instagram, WhatsApp. It's what's happening with the common people. How can you do that? Well, even you hire 100 persons to be infiltrated in every platform, which is impossible, or you can use what you already have. So if a brand, for example, reach out to a fan, a reviewer, a client, and they give a little bit of incentive, they would be their unofficial sellers, their ambassadors. And that's amazing because, for example, in Mexico, we have a Facebook group called Perfumeadictos Mexico. In the span of 2 years, it grew to 70,000 users. And every day, every minute, it's being sale done peer by peer. So that's amazing. And some brands have seen that and say, how can I participate there? You cannot go as a brand saying, hey, I'm here and I want to show my products, because nobody's going to do it. Again, it has to be social. But if a member of that group starts talking about the product, then all of the other group is saying like, okay, I trust what he says, so then I'm not going to buy it fully, but maybe I want to try it. And if you generate curiosity will lead to, I want to try it. And then you can close the circle with a buy. So I think it's very interesting, and what we can see on the right side, I think is what brands, they have to be focusing more instead of just the formal side of it.
Can I add
I don't
to
know if
that?
that makes sense.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I think, you know, in the old days, things might have been very linear, meaning here's a widget, I'm going to sell you a widget, you like the widget, done deal. And in the new way, it's very dynamic. So in addition to what Eduardo just said, on the back end, if you're a brand, there's so many things happening with the algorithm. You can target specific ads for, you know, if you have a dark post, I'm going to just target millennials in France, blah, blah, blah. Or I'm going to, you know, like target New Yorkers who are under the age of 35. There's so many things you can do on the back end that are totally automated for your brand. You don't need to hire 20 people. You just need 20 different apps that are all, you know, connected to your Shopify account. So you literally, you know, you have a fan in one of these groups, they talk about it, and suddenly your Facebook feed, you know, it's like stalking you. It knows that you've been talking about it. So maybe you don't want to talk about certain brands because people gatekeep perfume as well. But it's so interesting that you just have to have awareness that it's happening, that there's happening on the back end, as well as in these other circles. So not just those ones, but Discord, Reddit. And again, those conversations, you can literally search for something and you can see that they're timed and dated. So you can see the history, including if you're a brand that did a boo-boo, people are equally eager to see that you've made amends, and people will love that you've made amends. You know, so like Dossier is a dupe company, and you know, you can be on the fence on however you are on dupes. I don't personally like dupes, but they're successful. Is they purposely said, we're changing all our fragrances that we're using Oriental to amber. And instead of being blacklisted, people were like, oh, I suddenly love Dossier. And they might not have even been a dupe brand. So it has a positive effect too. So you can have positive changes as well as you double up with, you know, all this back end stuff. I mean, it's just dynamic. It's not linear anymore.
And we're running really short on time, but I want to be sure that we get to the next two slides, and then we'll end. TikTok, we had a question about this as a group, because we said, TikTok, is it worth it? Because is it just for teenagers, or is it more than that? And Yosh was the first one that said, oh no, Karen, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, in addition to viewers watching TikToks, the TikToker influencers themselves are becoming celebrities. We already know Jeremy Fragrance, who was a YouTuber. People have gone beyond the age of YouTube, and it's almost like if you are only a YouTuber, you're kind of dating yourself. And the reason why it's important to not necessarily court these TikTokers for your affiliate branding or whatever, but you know, just be aware that some of those TikTokers are now on the Sephora squad. So people at Sephora are paying attention to TikTok. And then those, I mean, I can't even believe some of the marketing PR gifts that these 20-year-olds are receiving, and the invitations that they're getting. Those used to be reserved for editors at Vogue. And now these 20-year-olds don't even have a full-time job. TikTok is their full-time job. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're making more money than me. And they're 20 years old. So I've just listed a few, and then I've also listed some of the top brands that they're talking about. So TikTok is not just for teenagers. These young people are spending hundreds of, you look at their collections, and they're worth thousands of dollars, and they're spending their money. Some of them are working, some of them, you know, I don't know how they're affording it, but it's incredible. There are lots of indie brands that are not well known on Instagram or Facebook, and they're TikTok darlings, and some of them have viral videos, and then once it spreads, you know, young people are still a little bit like little sheep. They want to wear the same fragrance as the next person. So there is that trend of, I want to smell, I mean, you know, Santal 33 or whatever, Byredo fragrances, and, you know, Baccarat Rouge is still quite popular, but people are on TikTok. The trend is, what is the next Baccarat Rouge? So it's you know, they know that the time is peaked and is going out, but it's amazing to see that these young people are super interested in artisan fragrance. So you have to go on there and just see.
Okay, our last slide is really about what if you make a mistake and can you fix it? Dana, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay.
This is my favorite
So
slide. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we'll take you on the audio, so we'll keep the slide up. But if you can just walk us through it really quickly, because we're already over time.
Sure. So in the industry, it's known that the digital transformation of any business has 4 things to it. The IT uplift is digitizing your goods. Digitizing your operations means, in our case, having an online store, digital marcom, and then digital businesses, new ventures. This is for advanced industries, not really speaking to our indie situation and niche perfumery. But of all of these, we need to be interested in digitizing operations. I already said that people abandon the buying process if they're not satisfied with the experience. And digital marcom is something that every indie brand can and should do because it's up to them, because it's accessible, and because it's cheaper. Now, if we're talking about digital marcom, it all comes down to trust. And trust, as we know, or maybe we don't, is built on 4 pillars. This is the language of Harvard Business Review, and it's been confirmed by many, many studies ever since. 4 pillars of trust refer to pretty much everything that we've talked about so far. The first one is expertise, and everything falls onto here. If somebody doesn't trust that you know what you're talking about, or that your perfume will be performing, as they call it, they will not buy it. If you say the wrong things, if you create the wrong context, if you have a wrong timing, you want to present on or launch something of Russian influence right when they're attacking, it's probably not the best time to do it. If your online store and online sale process doesn't work, the checkout doesn't work seamlessly, it will not work. This is an occasion to create a misstep. Consistency is another, transparency is another, and authenticity is another. Of all of these, I think authenticity is the most important pillar of trust, because if anybody comes to the point where they believe you're fake anything or you're faking anything as a brand, they will not purchase, and they will give you bad reviews everywhere you go. So greenwashing was already mentioned. Hopping on trends when you haven't been supporting any of those, particularly in the political space. To post a Black Lives Matter when you've never uttered anything about anything in the past is the minimum you can do. But those who are staunch supporters of the movement will research to see if you have in the past cared about this issue. And if you haven't, they will think that you're trying to piggyback right and get some of that, some of those hashtags to your own advantage. That is an unforgettable and unforgivable mistake. Wrong associations. Yosh was saying, and we were discussing this, there are blacklists supported by influencers where all the companies that are not conforming, they're not authentic, or not on the right side of history are being listed, so they never collaborate. They refuse to promote or collaborate with those brands. There are also blacklists of influencers. So if you're considering going to TikTok and picking the most successful person there and then sending them a PR package, consider this. There are a lot of consumers and a lot of other influencers who, if they find out you will be associating with a known racist influencer, they will not support you as a brand ever, and Everest, ever. I cannot, underline this enough. So
I think that's a great point, and I really hate to cut you off, but we've got people walking in for the next workshop. So I think what I want to do is just open the floor really quickly for 3 maximum questions. And if anyone has questions on the slide, go ahead and ask it to us. And if we don't get to you, we can always answer you virtually through email. So does anyone have a question really quick? I'm only going to take 3. I saw this lady here first.
So with regards to TikTok marketing in particular, and the perceived authenticity, I know TikTok advertising is becoming prevalent now. How do you balance a shop TikTok relative to making money from doing what on Facebook or Instagram?
So I'm going to repeat the question so people in the audience could hear. The question was, how do you distinguish between TikTok advertising, sponsored content, and user-generated content, and where's the transparency? So, because TikTok is perceived now as a legit platform, influencers are asked, if you're American, you have to follow FTC rules, and so you should be saying, this is a sponsored post, this is gifted, and that's part of the transparency and authenticity. The consumers want to know, is this your honest review, or are you being paid for it, or did you get this as a gift? So people see through that too, and it's okay if someone gave it to you as a gift and you don't like it or you do love it, because that builds trust, as Dana said, as an important pillar. Your audience wants to trust you and your opinion. And so I think more than anything, those two things are going to be a win for you. So even if you sponsor ads, even if you give gifts away, you can expect that the reviewer, you actually do good by having a bad review every now and again, because not everything you make is going to be a winner. And so if someone says, of this, I tried the Discovery set, these are my 3 favorites, and these are scrubbers, your audience, and then therefore the brand, is going to say, I want to try those things. And she didn't like it on her, but people know that skin is different. So surprisingly, the ones that an influencer might say, oh, I didn't really like that fragrance, weirdly, the comment session's going to be, actually I tried it and I love it. So it can be a win. So that's another way to transform your audience, is to not be afraid of the bad review, because we all know bad press is also good press. Great question.
I think, did you have a question here? We have one here.
My question was, do you think that there are factors, certain factors, like, for example, a potential bias in the algorithm that make it an uneven playing field for brands to succeed?
Can you repeat the last part?
If that's creating an uneven playing field for brands to succeed.
I think there's always going to be different power dynamics, because, if you're a small brand, you're just not going to have the power to send. I mean, Valentina Roma, that was all over TikTok and Instagram. Some of these people got impressive PR kits, and so that creates a different bias, because if you see lots of people talking about that one fragrance, you're more likely to buy it. And availability, if it's at Sephora, there's just more access, right? So if you're a smaller brand, your distribution, even though it's on the internet, may still be small. And so unless there's a different shift where you have a more democratized way to shop, there's always going to be a little bit of, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, I think there's going to always be a little bit of bias because of perceived quantity. Like, oh, I saw that on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I saw it 10 times, it must be good. But we also know on the back end of marketing, it used to be you needed like 4 touch points to convert a sale. Now you need 11. That includes awareness, all the different platforms, and then, like there's young people shop on their phone. And so if you're a brand that's targeting young people, I had one marketing company call me and say, well, we only work with brands that have minimum 10,000 phone numbers. And I'm like, 10,000 phone, so they only market to people who have 10,000 phone numbers in their database. So there are companies that only work at that level. So if you see a brand, email, newsletter, all these things, you're going to be biased because you just saw it 25 times versus, like I'm famous among dozens. Like, okay, you're only going to buy my product because you know me personally, probably. But so, yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any questions from this side? Because we didn't get to this side yet. No? Okay, is there one more? No. Well, she has one. All right, just give her the mic. Yes, go ahead. This is the last question.
Okay. I wanted to ask about TikTok and sales. And what I'm thinking about is whether you've had insight into sales data, or is it too early for that? Because when you think about brands that are very popular on TikTok, like we all know of Baccarat, are there any smaller brands that you've actually experienced the sales, skyrocketing thanks to TikTok?
Yeah, so one of the TikTok darlings is an American brand called Thin Wild Mercury. And early on, she's not even on any other platform, really. She had more than 1 million views on one of her TikTok views. And she was able to quit her full-time job within a week of that viral video. Her and her now husband just had so many sales from that one TikTok video to both of them quit their full-time job. And so there are other small brands like that who, you have one influencer who really loves your brand, and then their friends talk about your brand. So that's just one example. And there are others who maybe were on Etsy and now are on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And so you have an equal chance of being a unknown independent perfumer to quitting your full-time job to either be a full-time TikToker or to do your favorite thing is to make perfume. And I want to call out Maya over there. We keep showcasing her, but she is kind of a Instagram darling. She was unknown to me except through Amanda at We Wear Perfumes, and they both, they're in that digital space, and one of the other brands that is a TikTok darling is Maison Crevalli. I didn't even know who they were. Amanda showed them to me, and they are all over TikTok, partly because Twisted Lily, who's now Europarfums, I don't know, their marketing budget must be ginormous, but they send out lots of products to influencers and affiliates. So a lot of their brands are very, very well received through digital marketing. So, it's definitely possible to quit your day job and become a full-time perfumer thanks to TikTok.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm afraid that we're going to have to end the session here, but if anybody has any questions, I would just say that just outside of the door here, across, is the Extensional booth. If you have any questions, leave them at the booth. They'll come to me, and then I will see that we personally reply to you. It may not be immediate, but it will happen. And I thank you for coming and for your attendance, and enjoy the rest of the show.